Hello people and welcome to the complete guide to TOS. First parts of this video will likely be more helpful to newer players, but I'll be going through the majority of content that this game has, and there is a lot of content, so even if you're not a new player, hopefully you'll learn something new as well. This video is split into chapters as seen below in the video playback bar, so you can easily access and come back to a specific part that you left off on, because probably some of these parts will require some grinding before you can get to the next part. Without further ado, let's get started with the first section. The first thing that you will encounter upon downloading the game is the tutorial. The tutorial tells you some things but leaves out a lot of other things, so I'm here to fill in those gaps. First off, this game is not Candy Crush. Despite what the tutorial has you do, you have free movement of the runestone you pick up, and you should be trying to make as many combos as possible in each round. After finishing the tutorial, you'll get 3 summoner candidates and 5 protagonists. These cards won't be of much use to you now, but you should still pin and favorite these cards to avoid accidentally decomposing them. To do this, you just click on the card art, then on the top left corner you can see the 2 tabs of add to favorites and pin. Click both of them, and then this card will not be an option for you to decompose, which basically means you can't accidentally delete them. Additionally, you probably have a lot of rewards that can be claimed. Just navigate to the rewards section and claim any rewards that don't require you to choose a card. To do that, click on the top right hand corner, options right there. Then you see the rewards tab. The reason why it is good to wait before choosing a card in the rewards is that you might randomly get one of those cards, which then eliminates them as an option, since it's always better to get a new card relative to a dupe. For example, this option right here, you get a choice of 10 cards. You might randomly get one of these cards, through pulling on some kind of seal, which then means that you're free to choose some other card. Now in this specific example, it's not urgent to choose any of these cards right now, so I do recommend you wait. The stages that you should start with are actually not those on this main screen, since the majority will be way too difficult for a new player right now, especially the event stages. Instead, tap on the Enochian Tower in the middle and navigate to Era of Enoch, the button on the right. Here you'll find the old map with 5 areas and the old Enochian Tower. These stages are really easy even for new players because of one newest feature that was added to the game, the default team option that you can choose before entering a stage. Here you'll get the choice between Ingrid and Arthur, who are leagues ahead of what other cards you have right now. Even though you can likely make your way through the game by doing one combo with these teams, I highly recommend you actually try and practice your spinning so you can actually take on event stages in the future when your inventory and spinning skills are up to par. Right now, I don't recommend you touch any of the event stages since they'll be too hard for you, and furthermore, some of the harder event stages won't let you use the default teams that the game gives you. So the easiest way for a new player to progress would be to clear all the old story stages, which will net you diamonds since you get 1 diamond for clearing each stage. Start by scrolling to the bottom of each area, since those are the easier stages. Each stage will likely have multiple battles in it, and you'll know that a stage is cleared when it says clear on it. For example, in the water stage, you can scroll to the bottom, and then you can see that there are many stages right here. When one of these stages say clear, you will get 1 diamond for that. Speaking of diamonds, I recommend you save your diamonds until you reach either 175 or 200 diamonds, as those are the cutoff points for getting a guaranteed jackpot from a banner, the so-called pity if you have experience with other gacha games. So no impulse pulling please if you want to get some good cards and progress. Additionally, there are a couple of stages you should do as a new player, and those are in the train up tab of the Lost Relic, which is this area at the top left of the main map. To return to the main map, you can tap your stamina, which is the blue thing, the blue circle at the bottom of the screen, to return to the main map. In the train up tab, you have the option for an XP stage if you're level 149 and below, which provides you with a lot of account XP, which mainly matters for team costs, and I'll talk about that in more detail later. The other stage that you should do is the boss skill training stage, which will get you acquainted with some of the most common boss skills nowadays, even though you probably won't be seeing them for a while in the old story. As the tutorial outlined, you can do a long press on enemies to see a more detailed description of their skills. The other thing you should be doing in addition to grinding diamonds is to collect rewards at the Chronotravel Tower, which is at the top right of the main screen. This is basically the battle pass of this game, and the main thing you're after are the blue asteria, which is a type of currency that you can use in a banner to summon and will eventually get you towards red asteria, which in turn will get you towards the best free-to-play leader right now. Don't worry if that last part sounded very confusing, I'll get to it later in the video. That's it for this getting started section. I apologize for spending way too long on this, but there's just so much to cover. Moving on to the next section. So, the core gameplay loop of this game is entering a stage and spinning. However, even in this seemingly simple system, there is a lot of complexity that I have to cover. First off, as I said, it is in your best interest to use the default team option if you don't have something better. I also recommend you to actually read the leader and team skills, as they will provide you with a better understanding of how the team works and how to more efficiently utilize the leader and get more stat multipliers out of the team. For example, for Ingrid, if you look at her skill description, this can be done by long pressing into the card, the square card art. You'll find a leader skill and a team skill. For modern cards, I do recognize that this is kind of like reading an essay, but this does allow you to understand what kind of team you want to build. For example, for Ingrid, she is incentivized to build a team basically of cards that have all different attributes and all different races. In the case that the stage doesn't allow you to use a default team, you need to choose an ally. Typically, the ally should be the same card as the leader, and that is what the game recommends you in the first choice, and this can be chosen from your friend pool or hired for gold. Finally, we can enter the battle. The first thing I recommend you do is to turn off suggested path, which can be done by accessing the settings on the top right corner of the battle screen. This will actually allow you to think about how you want to spin instead of following the path that the game gives you all the time. When you spin, you'll want to envision what you want the final board to look like. This is a little bit abstract and kind of hard to do with the standard 5 seconds of spinning time, so I'll just show you a couple of static examples. The most typical boards are either horizontal or vertical, and you'll almost never get boards that look this perfect in normal gameplay, but this should be the final board state that you're imagining when you start spinning. You also have more complex boards like these, which are a combination of vertical and horizontal, but usually I don't try to go for these boards unless I really need the damage or recovery. I will also go over one of the most useful spinning techniques, which is stacking runestones. This is useful when you cannot dissolve some runestones for whatever reason, which comes up a lot in many different kinds of boss skills. There are two main types of stacking: horizontal stacking and vertical stacking. Horizontal stacking looks like this, and vertical stacking looks like this. Usually, I prefer vertical stacking since it's less obtrusive to the rest of the board. Once you master this, you can even do something crazy like puzzle stacking and multi-layer stacking. One additional feature I want to go over is Character Runestone, a relatively new feature that allows you to drag any one of your characters down into the board to start spinning with. There are a few basic functions of Character Runestone. Firstly, it allows for the replacement of the runestone right below the character with an attributive runestone that is the same attribute as your character. If you dissolve this runestone, the character will do an extra attack for the round. Regardless of whether you do dissolve this runestone, the character will enter a fatigue state for one round in the next round, meaning that it cannot attack. Character Runestone can also be used to trigger bond skills, which I will cover in more detail later. Lastly, there are a lot of things on the battle screen that I'm just going to quickly go over so you know what they are. I've adapted this infographic from Chinese Reddit, which briefly shows you the different elements on the main battle screen. Starting from the top, you have what cards you've collected, which can be seen in the top left. Your money is there as well. Settings on the top right, I've already talked about. Through here, you can access basic info, which displays what rewards you've gotten, which cards you've gotten. The second tab, you have stage info. You can preview the stage and what skills the enemy has, which is very useful. And lastly, you have team info, in which if you're playing with a team you're unfamiliar with, you can revisit the leader and team skills over here. You can also see your active skills by pressing on each card. For the enemies, on their top left, you have the enemy's CD. When it reaches 0, they'll attack you. You can have statuses on the left-hand side, which are just any variety of buffs. For example, if I activate Ingrid, she'll give a buff on the left-hand side. You have the enemy's health, pretty self-explanatory. On the right-hand side, you have your Draconic, which is a little mini game you can do after spinning that can increase your damage and a variety of other things, but that's a very complex system that I'll get to later in the video. On your actual cards, you can also have status effects on them. The enemy can sometimes fatigue you. You can give yourself some buffs on the cards themselves. For example, Rakshasa right here is an example of a card that has a buff icon on itself instead of the left-hand side. Furthermore, if the team is equipped with any Dragonware, somewhere, which is part of the Draconic system, your cards will also get a tiny icon on the top right. In the default team, this is not the case, so it's not present here. Right below that, you have your actual team HP, very self-explanatory. This turns into your spinning time when you start spinning. And then below that, you have your actual 5x6 board of 30 runestones. In here, obviously, you have normal runestones. You have all 5 attributes of normal runestones. You can get race runestones, and you can get enchanted runestones. Enchanted runestones, the tutorial went over. To get them through normal means, you dissolve 5 of the same type of runestone. For race runestones, they come about through any sort of active or team skill. They basically boost the damage of the race that the race runestone indicates when you dissolve them. Now, I'll go ahead and introduce the main map, starting from the top and going to the bottom. On the left hand side of the top bar, you can see your username, which if you click on will also switch to your UID. This is useful for logging into event pages along with your verification code, which can be found in your inbox. Next to that is your account level and XP bar. Mine is currently 502, and you can also click on the XP bar to see how far you are along. On the right hand side, you have your current diamond count, which is the main premium currency for this game, and your current coin count, which is the main non-premium currency for this game. In the middle, you have your adjutant portrait, which you can click into to display a variety of account information. The most important function here is changing your adjutant, which is the character you display to your friends. There are a few types of adjutants, but you can set them all to the same or different strong characters. Doesn't really matter that much. However, it is important to change it off of the default, which is Sabelle, otherwise no one's going to choose you as an ally. On the top right corner is the menu tab, which opens up a drop-down menu. Here, there are more sections that basically couldn't fit in the bottom bar. I already showed you the reward section, so let's move on to the other one. The chat section is basically useless since the in-game chat isn't very good. Instead, if you want to chat with other people, better off using Discord or something. Speaking of, if you want to chat with me or anyone else in the guild, you can join my Discord, which I have a link to down below in the description. Next is the slot machine, which is a system that allows you to get extra rewards every day. You get up to 3 spins per day by completing the tasks listed in the description, which can be accessed by pressing the question mark. Following that is the community section, which mainly lets you access your inbox and also manage your friends in the friend page. To send a friend request, you can click search ID and input the ID of the player you want to add. You can also view your own ID in here. Here's mine, and feel free to add me as a friend. To accept someone else's friend request, you can go to the confirm as friend tab and you can see it there. The inbox, as I previously said, is mainly used for accessing your current verification code and for other people to send you random stuff through the in-game chat system. I won't open that right now because I'll dox my own verification code. Following that is the settings page, which allows you to adjust all sorts of stuff, including the volume of the music and sound effects, selecting the background music that plays during the day and during the night. Some other significant toggles here are skill confirmation, which I usually have off. Leaving it on is useful for reading skills of new cards, but once you're familiar with what all the cards in your team do, you can turn this off to activate your actives faster. Frame rate, I suggest you set to smooth, although this will increase your battery consumption. In my experience, it's not by that much, and it makes the game look better. A suggested path, I recommend you keep off at all times so you can think for yourself. As I said earlier, the other settings below here are up to your personal preference. They mainly concern animations that play in certain situations, which don't have much effect on the main gameplay loop. Lastly, the Others tab has a bunch of useless stuff that you probably don't have to interact with ever, so pretend like this section doesn't exist. With the top bar done, I'm going to move on to the main map. First up in the top left is the Lost Relic, which contains current and past event states. The first tab, Lost Relic, is where you will find current event stages, the first type being Ultimate and Nightmare stages, which are hardish events that drop the boss card, with Nightmare stages basically being a harder version of Ultimate stages. You can tell what type the stage is by just looking at the top left here. This is a relatively new thing that they added. New Ultimate stages usually release every weekend, and you can get the diamond if you haven't cleared the particular Ultimate stage before. Just like any other stage, it's just different because Ultimate stages rotate, and if you have cleared it in a previous rotation, it will show up as cleared and you won't get a diamond from it. However, even if you did clear it in a previous rotation, it may still be a good idea to clear it again when it appears, since every Ultimate stage gives you a harpy for the first time you clear it every rotation. Ultimate stages also have achievements, which you can find on the bottom right hand corner in event information. These usually give orbs or souls, sometimes draconics, but those are pretty rare. Orbs are for the Ascension system, and Souls are for the Amelioration system. Next are bi-weekly stages, which are stages that rotate every 2 weeks. These have 3 difficulties, or 5 in the case of older bi-weeklies. These show up as weekly. They're blue, with an increased drop rate of the card as you go up the difficulty. The card that drops usually isn't that good, but as with all other cards, it is a good idea to get at least one in case it somehow becomes useful in the future. Completing all 3 difficulties for the first time gives you 1 diamond just like any other stage, and you can also get an extra diamond by doing 9 achievements. You can see the achievements on the bottom right by clicking on the achievement tab. Next up, you have transmogration stages, which are long stages that do not allow revives. They also drop a card at the end, and these cards tend to be quite good. The last kind of recurring event stages are calamitous stages, which correspond to the seal bosses in the game, and they come back at the start of every month, with the first seal boss coming back on the 1st of every month, the second one coming back on the 2nd, and so on. These stages drop Cores of Doom, and I recommend you touch these last even as a semi-new player, since these are the hardest kind of stages game. Cores of Doom are valuable resources that would take too long to explain right now. I have a whole other video covering that in detail already, so check that out if you want to know more. Lastly, you have the item aid station at the bottom, which are stages that you can play once per day to get the 3 items that you can use to boost either the boss drop, XP, or coins respectively within a stage. The next tab I'll talk about is the large scale event tab, which contains events that are non-reoccurring, such as joint operation, horror stages, and guild events. The most common event here are monthly challenges, which, as the name suggests, come by every month. There are 10 levels in each monthly challenge, and the rewards for each floor are consistent every month. Most notably is the Core of Doom that you get for completing level 10. Level 9 and level 10 are also some of the hardest stages in the game, and usually require a top meta leader to pass. If you're interested in how I personally clear these, I usually release the complete set of videos by the middle of the month, because I'm not as good as coming up with original teams as some other people, and life is busy. The next tab is the LR Pass, where you pay gold to play a stage that drop the boss card. This is good for diamond farming and also card farming, since there are many stages in here, and as I said, the boss card does also drop as a reward. There are a huge amount of past event stages in here, and I only recommend you do this if you have nothing else to do currently in the current events in the game, since this will always be here, and it is a bit of a stamina sink, and if you're newer, it's also kind of a gold sink. As for which cards you should go farm first, most of the cards in here are actually kind of useless, but also I have a whole other video on that already as well, so go and watch that if you're interested. And it would take way too long to explain all of these cards right now. Lastly, there's also the train up tab, where you can train for specific gameplay elements and also farm common evolved materials. First off, you have calamitous training, which allows you to practice doing any calamitous stage at any time at the cost of 1 stamina. However, the boss card will obviously not drop in here. This is just for training purposes. Next, you have boss skill training, which I covered earlier. Then you get to the different resources that you can farm. You can farm souls, which is a type of currency for amelioration, draconics, which I will get to this in crafting day, evolved materials in Day of Elements, gold in Day of Gold and Day of Greed, other evolved materials in Crystal Dragons, Descending Swords, Honeymoon Hunting Demon's Den, and level up materials in Catching Soulstone. Lastly, you can also practice how to use draconics in the Scholar's Training Course. Each one of these costs 0 stamina, basically lets you try out every mode of your draconic, and just to get some practice in, because sometimes you'll have to use different modes of draconic. The real last stage here is Infinite Extremes, and although I have cleared it, you really don't need to do this. This is a waste of your time. The rewards are not worth the pain and suffering you need to go through to clear this. That's all I'll say about that. That is finally all for the Lost Relic, and moving on to the next area. The Chronotravel Tower is in the top right of the map, and it is the battle pass for this game. As I briefly covered earlier, this is one of the main goals that you should be working towards. You complete missions to move up the levels, which will yield you various rewards, and among those you get blue Asteria. In total, you get 5,600 blue Asteria every cycle of the battle pass, which is 4 weeks. At level 40, you also get an exclusive battle pass card, which may or may not be good depending on the cycle. Sometimes, you know, they're very useful. Sometimes you'll never use them ever. Next up in the middle of the screen is the Enochian Tower. This is where you access all the past and present story stages. There are 3 sections in here. Side story contains the stories for all the new characters and is basically free diamonds. Main story contains the new story, which has 2 modes, normal and hard, which you can toggle on the right hand corner. Lastly, there's Heir of Enoch, which contains the old story. Apart from the stuff I previously covered for the old map, there are also more sections of story in here apart from the 5 areas and the main tower, such as the Traveler's Memories, which is this dragon on the top right. An important thing about this section is that this is where you get the Summoner Enoch in the stage Dawn of Enoch inside Inevitable Fate, inside Marks of Newborn. So this is Marks of Newborn, then you go into Inevitable Fate, and then you complete Dawn of Enoch Extra, then you get Enoch the Summoner. Back on the main screen, if you scroll up, you get to the 9th seal right here at the top. You work your way up towards here. You also have this purple portal on the bottom right of the first screen above the main screen, which is Void of the Realm. Here you have 3 more big areas, basically more diamond mines, but this is not part of the main story. I suggest you do this, somewhere between 9th or 10th seal kind of difficulty. If you scroll down from the main screen, you'll get to the 10th seal, which, 3 stages here as well. And if you scroll back up after you've obtained Enoch, you have the 11th seal right above this, and you can click that to traverse into this entirely new map. The next area I want to go over is the guild in the bottom left. The main function of the guild is the black hole, which allows you to farm every variety of material in the game by paying a cost of black keys. Black keys can be obtained by doing missions, which are also in the guild interface over on the right. Each mission gives you 1 key, and you can get 5 or 7 if you're lucky black keys per day, since there are 5 standard missions every day, with a chance of another special mission after you complete the 5 main ones. There are 4 types of missions: donating gold, giving an item, giving a card, or playing a stage. Black hole is also kind of a diamond mine, as each material, or group of materials in some cases, count as its own stage, meaning that you will get a diamond for clearing it for the first time. Additionally, the guild also gives you bonus rewards of coins and XP from clearing stages, but this is kind of negligible. And lastly, being in a guild can let you get additional rewards when participating in certain events such as guild missions, ancient wars, joint operation, and etc. This is my guild, Starshot. You can find the guild ID in the description if you want to join. It is also on screen right now, so feel free to join me in the guild. On the bottom right hand side, you have the arena. The arena is a source of renewable diamonds, where typically you can get 5 diamonds per week. Here last week I was Warlord 1, so this is the rank that you need to get to basically. You get 5 diamonds per the week, along with many extra rewards. The first main screen here is Arena Battle, where you choose which arena you want to take on. Challenging an arena costs 1 vigor, and you get 5 vigor a day, seen on the top right hand side. Next is Monster Info, which can be used to check for any current boosted cards and put those in your team to get more battle points. Finally, you have rewards to claim your rewards. At Warlord 1, which is the rank I typically get to every week, because higher ranks basically mean you have to compete against other players. This is not that difficult to get to if you use a boosted team. You also have arena points, which you can see once you click the prizes here. You can use this currency to redeem different cards. The cards here that are actually worth it here are the arena cards, which you can tell by clicking into them and then clicking their exclamation mark to show what series they come from. Apart from that, you have a bunch of branching evolution cards for these 3 right here, but they don't really get used that much, so I won't get into much detail of how they work right now. Finally, on the bottom left below the guild, you have the mission interface. Usually the graphic for this is Dottie the squirrel, but sometimes it changes to be some other character when there's a collab or something. Here you have daily missions, which will give you slot machine chances and also some extra soul stones. Monthly missions, which you complete to get evoking coins, which is a currency I'll talk about later you can spend in a particular shop. Special missions, which are missions related to current stages, gives you a load of stuff just based on what the missions are. And beginner and advanced bingo. These 2 bingos work the same way, just follow what the missions tell you, and you can get some extra rewards that way. Just click on the missions, they'll tell you what to do. Sometimes they'll even tell you how to proceed to whatever stage they require you to. At the end of advanced bingo, one thing to note is that you can get 1 chance to draw for a black gold right here. However, this, it'll take a while for you to get here since the missions are pretty time consuming, requiring you to draw 125 times on a diamond seal, for example. So you shouldn't worry about getting this too much. Moving on to the bottom bar, there are 4 main sections here, being team, inventory, shop, and summon. Obviously there's also a stamina pool in the middle, but that's not a section, it just brings you back to the main screen. First off is the team interface. This is where you can build your team. The team consists of 5 cards, and to start you can click on any empty slot to add a character in. Once added into the team, you can click on the character to change their position within the team or even remove them. You can also equip Draconics by tapping on this icon below the inventory icon, which will pull up your Draconic inventory. Once you have finished building a team, there's a final stat breakdown that the game gives you, but the only stat you need to care about is team cost, which is here on the top left, since that is the limiting factor for which cards you can actually afford to fit in your team. These other stats, I guess you can care about HP, but your HP will get boosted by all sorts of team skills, and your attack is really meaningless. You can get additional team cost by leveling up your account, which also gives you more team slots to work with. Right now I have 30 available slots. Before I go over the actual process of team building, I just want to go over 2 things. The first is the card filtering interface. Here you can filter cards by attribute and/or race. Another useful filter is by the series as well. The second thing is how you actually view a card's skills. A given card will have 3 or 4 different types of skills, where you can switch between them on the bottom bar if you long press into the character portrait. There are active skills, a skill the card can activate within battle, leader skill, and team skill, which come into play usually when the card is used as leader and ally, and possibly any bond skills, which are additional passives that come into effect when you trigger a card's character moonstone based on any other cards that you have maxed in your inventory. If that last one sounds complicated, it kind of is, and for now I'll just focus on actives and leader and team skills. So the first thing you want to do is to identify a leader you want to use. This is usually a jackpot of some kind from a banner. Then you look at the leader and team skills that it has to determine what members are appropriate to put in the team. Most of the time the leader will give additional multipliers to a race or an attribute or both, and this is what I call soft limiting, due to the fact that the skill will still work if you put random cards in, they just won't get any of the multipliers. An example of this is Hideyoshi. His leader skill specifies that Sengoku members and Earth humans attack times 7, HP and recovery times 2, and then a bunch of stuff after that. This skill will still work if you put random cards that aren't Sengoku members or Earth humans in his team, they just won't get this effect. And for his team skill, it works when he is leader and ally. The other type of leader and team skill is called hard limiting, where the skill will only work if certain types of cards are in your team. An example of this is Arthur, where in his leader skill, the first line says, when the team has only light humans and Knights of the Round Table members, you get a bunch of stuff. His skill actually just does not take effect if you put in cards that are not light humans or Knights of the Round Table. This can also get more complicated, as in the case of Ingrid, one of your default team leaders, where her team needs to have no repeating attributes and races of the members, and different races give different effects in her team skill. This basically gives you incentives for what cards you put in a given team to get the maximum multipliers out of a leader's leader and team skill. So once you have identified the appropriate type of members for a given leader, it is time to choose members based on their active skill. This is typically done by first reading the stage info, which is either available on the wiki, or if you just enter the stage and check on the upper right settings, you can read the stage info there. Then you pick your members based on what you need for the stage to specifically counter the shields that are in the stage. A useful tool for doing this is the active skill filtering tool. Now this tool was made in Chinese and some of you likely can't read it. You can use Google Translate to translate the web page, and it works. Sometimes it isn't a perfect solution, but in the case that you need additional help, me and anyone else in my Discord server can help you with finding members for specific stages that you need to clear. The reason why that I'm not using the in-game filter is because this tool actually kind of sucks. If you type in like words here, more stuff will pop up than you want it to. For example, I can type in fixed combo. It will still show me cards that have the word fixed in them, and now it will also give me cards that have the word combo in them, which is not very good in terms of filtering. With all that knowledge, hopefully you can now understand why the default teams are built the way they are, and start making progress towards building your own teams as well. A necessary starting point for building your own team, as I said before, is a strong leader, and this can be any current jackpot that you get from any current banner that is going on right now, or as I said before, Hey Jaja from the Red Asteria. Just make sure to read their leader and team skills in order to make sure you're fully utilizing them as a leader. Next up is the Essence and Craft inventory. These inventories allow you to view all your Draconics that you have, And here I'll go into a bit more detail about how the whole Draconic system works. A Draconic is something that you can equip onto a card, and the one on your leader determines the type that you'll activate in a stage. The main function of it is to boost your damage in a single round, where you will play a minigame, and the final score of your minigame will determine how much of a damage boost you get. There are 10 different modes of Draconics. This determines the kind of minigame that you will end up playing. Furthermore, a Draconic will also have a number of additional effects based on the amount of stars it is, with a max of 3 stars. You can view these effects by tapping Act 1, 2, or 3 at the bottom of Draconic once you long press into it. To activate all 3 of these effects, you'll need to have at least 3 Draconics of the same mode as the leaders in the team. For example, the aggressive Peak Seal, one of the best Draconics in the game, has 3 stars, with the first active being that 10% of damage dealt to enemies will be converted to your HP, the second effect being that team attack increases by 30% and attacks will be launched regardless of attribute relation, and the third one, which is why this is so powerful, it's that it delays CDs of all enemies by 2 rounds. You can practice doing these minigames in Scholar's training course in the Lost Relic, as I mentioned before. There are also a special type of Draconics called Dragonwares, which are Draconics that give stat boosts and more passive abilities to the card that it is equipped to. You can obtain Draconics through 3 ways: them dropping from stages, you pulling them in specialized seals in the summon menu, or making them yourself, which is what the craft furnace is down in the bottom right. The essences are involved in making your own Draconics, which can get extremely complicated, and as a normal person, you'll very likely never need to use it, so I won't go over that right now. You only need it if you're trying to do something insane, which I have done in the past, of course. However, what I will go over is how to make Dragonware. Making Dragonware also uses the craft furnace. You go into it and you just tap for Dragonware. Making a Dragonware requires a specific character for the Dragonware you want to make, and also 2 silver components of the same mode, which will determine the mode of the resulting Dragonware. If you're a new player, you likely won't have many Draconics or Dragonware, but you'll naturally accumulate more as you play through the game, so don't worry about grinding specifically for these. The character inventory is your main inventory where you can view all the cards that you have collected. One of the most useful things you can do right away is to use the Move to Material Inventory button on the bottom right corner, which will probably clear up a large chunk of your inventory. There are some movable characters, mainly just materials that want to move to the material inventory to stop them from clogging up your main inventory, but also some 2 and 3 star monsters that used to be materials. Below that is Decompose, which is used to delete cards from your inventory. As I mentioned at the very start of the video, make sure to pin and favorite cards that you want to keep to avoid accidentally decomposing them. The main thing you can do in this inventory is powering up your cards, which can be done in various ways. Firstly, you can level up your cards. Leveling up your cards increases their base stats of HP, attack, and recovery. Almost all cards have a level cap of 99, and you can use various level up materials to level them up to that point. In the same menu, you can also do the same with skill level, which uses a different set of materials and shortens your active skills cooldown, also known as CD. Another way to power up your cards is Amelioration, which consists of 4 battles where you pay souls and stamina to advance through each battle. These 4 battles also make up the hidden stage, so if it is your first time fully ameliorating a card, you also get 1 diamond upon completion. You can get souls by decomposing cards that have the soul icon on them. Typically, these will be the materials you get from Day of Souls that I talked about earlier, since you don't really want to go around decomposing your actual seal cards. Not all cards will have amelioration, so pay attention to those that do, and will always be in the 3rd slot when clicking into the card. Something that is present in all cards is Ascension. Ascension consumes orbs in order to raise a card's base stats up to +20. You can get attributive orbs by going to Orb Redemption and selling your cards for their respective orbs, and Spirit Orbs just drop as rewards from various places. However, as you may or may not have noticed, none of my cards are actually ascended. This is because I personally dislike the system, as it encourages power creep by inflating stats, mainly your HP stat, and also it makes it a pain to follow along with a video walkthrough. I've encountered this situation many times myself, where due to Ascension, the extra HP you get is enough to tank an extra hit from an enemy, and if you don't have those specific cards ascended, you can't pass the stage in a similar way. Therefore, I'll not be using this system ever, and you won't have to worry about having that problem when you watch my videos. Finally, the last way to power up a card is by evolving and its various different forms. You have your standard Evolve, where you consume an Evolve material, and the card advances its star level, changing into an entirely new card with different skills. The next step after Evolve, if the card has it, is Power Release, also known as PR. This is similar to Evolve, but with the additional requirement that you have to beat complete a certain stage with the card in order to advance. The next step after PR, if the card has it, is Virtual Rebirth, also known as VR, which is similar to PR, but the card that you get afterwards can switch between two forms. You can do this by doing power alternation on the card. One of the forms will usually be similar to how the card was before VR, and the other form will be something entirely new. Lastly, the last step after VR, if the card has it, Supreme Reckoning, known as S. This usually combines both forms of VR back into one singular card with enhanced abilities that take on both previous forms. I don't recommend new players do SR because it takes a lot of materials that cost a lot of black keys or just a lot of farming in general. An additional note is that a select few cards can also do Awakening Recall, known as AR, but the way to do it is inconsistent across different cards, so I won't go over that right now. If you have specific questions about how to level up or evolve a specific card, you can leave a comment down below or ask about it in my Discord. The summoner inventory is where you can view and spec your summoner. Currently, there are two summoners in the game, Enoch and Shroy. Enoch is obtained by beating Dawn of Enoch Extra inside Inevitable Fate, inside Marks of Newborn. I think I briefly talked about that before, but this is in Traveler's Memories, inside Marks of Newborn, inside Inevitable Fate, and then you get the Dawn of Enoch extra stage. Using Enoch as a leader is needed for almost all stages in the 11th seal. Choosing specific paths within the 11th seal will also unlock different amelioration options for the card. As for Shroy, you obtain him by clearing volume 2 of the new story. Summoners can be specced into using talent points. You can allocate talent points towards different aspects of them, such as the basic stats of HP, attack, and recovery, as well as active skills and amelioration. The way you get talent points is by playing specific stages, which can be found in the Summoner's Memories interface. For Enoch specifically, some options for amelioration are locked behind certain paths, and once you have chosen a specific path to go down, you can't go back up, so choose carefully. If you want to have the same load as me, here's the path that I took through the 11th seal. Lastly, you have the material inventory. This inventory is virtually useless since you can't really interact with the cards in here. It's just an infinite storage space for all the material cards in the game. The shop tab is the third interface on the bottom bar. It contains many different types of shops where you can exchange different types of currency for different resources. Most of the shops here will be permanent, starting with the Evoking Coin Shop. This shop sells cards at the cost of 800 Evoking Coins each. At the time of recording, there are 4 cards here, but more will come out over time. I wouldn't say any card here is absolutely necessary, but I do sometimes use some of them. To get Evoking Coins, you need to complete monthly missions and redeem them at Dotty on the main screen on the bottom left, where you can get up to 1,000 Evoking Coins per month. Next up is the diamond shop, where you can purchase diamonds for real life money. I personally haven't spent any money on this game, but I don't recommend you purchase diamonds through here since the gift pack shop right next door is a way better use of your real life money. There are often deals in here that just yield more diamonds for a cheaper price. Below that, you have the black key shop, which Madhead has neglected to put an English interface for. This works the same way as the black hole in the guild, except you don't have to play a stage, and therefore the cost of black keys for your materials is slightly higher. Next to that is the element shop, where you exchange tombstones for a variety of things. Tombstones can be gotten by battling in the 10th seal, and you have a variety of things that they can be traded for. The most useful trade here is the one for Mystic Slimes, which don't actually require tombstones. The Mystic Slimes are a universal skill level material for most old characters in the game. Apart from that, the other valuable trade here is that you can trade subject pots using glory stones in the monster tab, where you can trade in a subject pot for another subject pot from the same banner. I'll talk about glory stones in more detail a little later in the summon section. The last thing you can do here is to redeem orbs in the 4th section. The second last shop here is the commodity exchange. Ignore the coin section here since it's pretty useless. The soul section has some interesting cards. Most of them are rarely or never used, I would say, but Boilerman, which is this card right here, and Marcosius, if you scroll down a bit, is this card right here, are the most valuable cards out of here. The other ones I haven't even bothered to get just because their effect is either bad or replaceable by some other cards. In the Dragon Ore tab, you can trade in Dragon Ores for silver components, where each one costs 4,000 Dragon Ore. As I mentioned before, these are needed in order to create your own Dragonware. Lastly, there is a Chasmic Cube section, where you can trade in 500 Chasmic Cubes for a PR material for a specific race. You obtain Chasmic Cubes from decomposing PR materials, or gold or silver or bronze madheads, and this basically allows for free conversion between any particular PR material. Lastly, there is expansion, where you pay diamonds to expand the size of your various inventories, ranging from your actual character inventory, your gearbox inventory, your friend list, and also your stamina. The most useful thing here isn't even the shop itself, it's that you can view whether it is a bonus stamina period. A bonus stamina period means that you get an extra stamina can if you use a diamond to refill your stamina within that time period, and this allows you to be more efficient when refilling your stamina. That's it for this section. Moving on to the summon section. The summon section is where you use your diamonds to pull for cards. Two things I want to say before getting into any of the seals. Make sure you have the diamonds necessary for a guaranteed pity before you pull, otherwise you have a pretty high chance of wasting your diamonds and not getting anything. The cutoff points for pity are 175 diamonds for a collab jackpot and 200 diamonds for a black gold seal. The second thing to keep in mind is that to be most efficient with your diamonds, you should only be pulling in raid up areas where the jackpots have a higher chance of appearing. With that being said, let's get into the different types of seals. The first screen you will see in the summon section is the newest banner. This can be either Era of Novelty, a black gold seal, or any collab that happens to be on in that time period. In the case of black gold cards or collab seal, the jackpots will usually be quite strong, so if you have the diamonds needed for pity, these are usually pretty good to go for. In addition, when you do the number of pulls needed for a pity, which you can see below the banner itself, you also get a glory stone, which can be used to trade sub jackpots in the shop, as I briefly went over before. Next is Novelty Chronicle, which contains old jackpots that were previously in the Era of Novelty seal. Some cards in here are still pretty good, but you shouldn't be making this a priority to pull on, since the cards in here are of lower quality than any current banner card. After that, there are a few seals that do not use diamonds as their currency. You have the Ancient Coin Seal, which is a seal that costs 5 ancient coins to pull from. You get ancient coins by spending diamonds on pulling, and the card pool potentially contains black gold cards, so you may get something good here if you get lucky. The card pool is only open when a black gold seal is open, which unfortunately I missed at the time of this recording, so if you have ancient coins, do give it a try. Next is the red and blue Asteria seals. As I explained before, you pull on the blue Asteria seal to get red Asteria, and the current jackpot in the red Asteria seal is a good leader that you should be aiming to get. There's also the Dragonore seal, a seal that uses Dragonores and gives you dragon wares for specific attributes. I suggest you don't worry too much about this seal, as there are better ways to obtain dragon wares. After that is the Chronotravel seal, which works similarly to the Ancient Coin seal, where you may get something good if you get lucky, since the card pool does contain black gold cards. You can obtain Chronotravel coins in the Chronotravel Tower, which I went over previously. Towards the end of the summon menu, you also have some old seals that sometimes rotate, in addition to the seal of the engraver and seal of the carver. Never pull on any of these, as the cards in here are also in the black gold seal card pool, and there's often no urgency to get any one of these cards, so pulling on these would just be a waste of your diamond. Finally, you have the friend point seals, which cost friend points to pull from. I recommend you only pull from part 1 since it contains materials, whereas part 2 contains a lot of other random low star level cards that you can just farm for within the LR pass. And that's it for the guide. Hopefully you enjoyed this not very whirlwind tour of the main content within TOS. It definitely took longer than I expected to explain everything, and that you learned something whether you are a completely new player, a veteran, or anything in between. If you have any other specific questions that you want to ask, feel free to leave them in the comments below or join my Discord server and ask them there. Finally, I'd like to thank you for making it to the end of the video, and please subscribe if you would like to see more like this. See ya!